Hello world, Frida Reba Darcy and Patricia O'Connor here today on the Bonsai Balcony. This is our MO, this is what we do, this is our modus operandi. Beautiful, deep blue sky, Alameda, California. Very, very temperate climate. It's like a sweater and I'm climbing out of here, but I kind of want the pocket, so I'm going to keep the sweater on. Kind of a day. No real breeze. We're calm, cool, collected. Yeah, we're loving it. It's our day off, one of two that we get because we're a girl in retail who has weekends off. I don't know that you'll ever hear anybody else even say that. Today's show. We have a lot going on one hand, and on the other hand, I'm waiting. I'm just shipping. No big deal. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. I'm just kind of waiting on some stuff. And what am I waiting on? I'm waiting on my next load of bio gold coming up. We're getting into spring. Everybody's waking up there. I mean, it's not like everybody's starving. There's still old bio gold out there, but it would be time. It would be time to refreshen my lumps, and it'll be here. It'll be here before Monday. So says the shippers. But we're having a really good day. The other thing that I'm waiting on is, and it was difficult. I just thought I would just stagger right up to my computer and get some soil. And I saw that my local vendor had some soil, but not the size that are required. So then I went to other obvious computerized sources for soil, and I began to look, and I started seeing that I wasn't going to go with this guy because of an ingredient, and I wasn't going to go with this guy because of a particle size. And I ended up having to look for a minute for Boon Mix. And I say that like I'm surprised, because I am. Boon Mix is usually, you can usually trip over it. And I saw a lot of stuff that was close, but not. In other words, it was four-part stuff. Boon Mix is 3 parts. And those 3 parts would be pumice, lava, akadama. And that's just a really good conifer mixture. A lot of people will add a 4th ingredient, like I mentioned, and that 4th ingredient is wood chips or charcoal, little lumps of charcoal. I'm not the biggest fan of that. My fear as a person with a ponderosa, which moves water slowly, is root rot. That's what I live in fear of. If I water this tree as much as I water my Japanese black pines, which take a little less water than some other trees, I'll rot the roots on this guy and kill it. So having wet pieces of wood hanging out in my soil is the no. Now, where this tree came from, the climate was extremely different. I'm going to be talking about this for a minute because this is coming up, and in preparation for something that's coming up, I started thinking about how I wanted to do it, how far I wanted to go with it, what kind of, okay, let's just start over. When I lost my opportunity to graft this tree this year, I went, well, I was not going to repot this tree this year because of those grafts. Instead, I was just going to go to a lot more care and trouble to manage my watering. This is a very, very large pre-bonsai container. Really large. I mean, this is a really large pre-bonsai pot. And what I think, I haven't repotted this tree before, so when I go in there, I'm going in there for the first time. So far, I've removed my top dressing and had a look at the substrate. What it looks like to me, and I could be wrong, but what it looks like to me is the original mountain soil from here to there, from there to there. I would also assume that they probably cut some off the bottom and then put a layer of and put a layer of something like this under the bottom, right? So I've been having trouble getting, especially in the winter, getting this tree to dry out in its original mountain soil. Meanwhile, the stuff on the bottom is probably drying out sooner. In fact, Lee of Lee's Trees, one of our longtime buyers, has a ponderosa from the same collector and was saying that he just repotted his earlier in the repotting season, and that the wet substrate he saw was, if he were gauging off of that, that was causing him to let the fine roots at the bottom, which were in decent substrate, that was causing them to go too long. So whenever I would see this tree and go, is it underwatered? Is it overwatered? It looks kind of, where are we going? I didn't know. I didn't know. I would scrape off the top and see wet mountain soil, and I would have no idea what's going on down here. Should I let this stuff that I'm seeing that looks like a mud ball dry out farther? Or is that just causing this stuff down here to go farther and farther and farther without water? And, which results am I seeing here? So the water and oxygen, which I'm always preaching, is a little out of my control somewhat. And trying to guess as to what's going on and which is the better thing or which is the worst thing. It looks like to me, like, despite the fact that whenever now I've already watered it, so this is not going to be a real test. But whenever I do this 2 days after watering and I still see that there's moisture down in there, I should still water, because these guys down here are probably bone dry. That's what I don't know. The percolation is not ideal also when you've got some part of the substrate that's so wet. Also, as I've preached many times before, we never bare root. We never bare root our pines. We never bare root our oaks. Sometimes you'll buy one of these guys from out of the state or out of country or something, and they may come to you bare rooted. Having said that, you never bare root your tree. If local laws or agricultural agreements or something make that happen, then that's a risk that you take when you buy a tree that's going to be bare rooted. And many nurseries buy trees that come to them bare rooted. So I know that the survival rate for that is probably higher than what I would think. I hope they have a deal, a buyback, is all I can say. Anyway, we don't bare root our trees. So what we're going to do is, in an ideal situation, we're going to leave a third, or I hear different amounts, but it's not a race. It's not a matter of being prideful about how much, how close you can come to killing something without killing it. Is not something to show off to me. So what I will be looking to do in this repot that's coming up, and we would be doing this repot now. We would be doing this repot now if my soils showed up, but I didn't order soon enough to have that happen. But I've got a couple of 3 gallons of some Boone mix that is a particle size that is said to be an 1/8 and 1/4, no 1/16. So this will be the bigger granule size, which I think will accommodate this bigger tree. When I was watching, going back to Lee's Trees, this isn't the Lee show, by the way, but I appreciate you, Lee. When I was going back to the conversation, he and I were discussing a specific video done by Mariah Live. In the last video I did, I believe, I dropped the link to that. I didn't realize that it had since then. I still buy it as a member. I mean, I still watch it as a member, but I didn't realize it had been leased to the wild since then. So I dropped the link to that. And one of the things that he was talking about in his second repotting, which is a big deal for a Yamadori, the second repotting, is where he goes in and attacks that sheen. What he had done was he had a tree that 10 years ago, he was full of mountain soil. He went down to a bonsai size pot then, not a training pot. And he cut this back halfway, so that, and then let it, new substrate on the top. And then he sat back for what was longer than what he should have gone, admittedly, on his own. You don't wait 10 years normally to do your second repot. But the tree was regained health and vigor and was just doing phenomenally well. So he went on to other things, and 10 years went by, and then it became a big deal. So when he pulled that out, he had new roots, new roots, new roots, and new roots. But the heart of it was still that mountain soil that was spent, used up mud ball. And he couldn't cut all of that out because that was the foundation of all the stuff that the tree was doing better on, all the fine stuff that the tree was doing better on, all the fine stuff that he now doesn't want to remove, that was all attached to the thing that he needed to clean out. So what he did was he cut off as much as he dared cut off, which we cut the mat off the bottom, I believe. And then he just went in and started breaking down the substrate, but not wrecking the amount of roots totally. He took a little bit more than I would have, but his deal was different than mine. I'm doing this. We have energy in these roots, and on the back side of this, I would like to keep as much of that energy and as much of those roots as possible. So the idea that I have is we get to, we'll take some of the matted stuff off probably. Don't like the idea of getting rid of any of my stored energy. I need for that little green, pretty, I need for that little shoot on there, that little scion. I need for that guy to just go and become its own future leader, that one that's centered up. So all the energy that's down there in those roots behooves us, and I will get rid of as little as possible of it. So what I'm looking to do is bring it in the house, set up a bigger table. I don't think I have any wires left. We had a wire over there and we had a wire over the back part. I think I cut all of that loose. Turn the tree on its side. We're going to take off all of our top dressing and keep it. Probably go back in with a lot of it. And then once we've raked this top dressing off to the side, I'll be looking at the black dirt slab that's in there. We'll go ahead and with our chopsticks, and rather than do what I was saying, what Ryan had done, I'm going to have to do this differently. This is an oversized pot. It's been in here for several years. We have a lot of stored up energy in those roots that I do not want to get rid of. But then the flip side of that is, like I said, we're in an oversized pot. At some point in the game, we have to be able to scale down to a bonsai pot. And if I keep trying to do everything under these specific dimensions, just cultivating this block, on the back side of this, when I have the Japanese black pine foliage that I want, and I have less of the ponderosa foliage or no ponderosa foliage on here, I'm still going to be turning around and looking at several years of trying to reduce this. It would be good if I could start doing that reduction now, if not reduce, because I just said I didn't want to go cutting all the roots off here. Set myself up for a reduction. And how would I do that? How would I set myself up to reduce these roots? Well, a couple of things. And there's a couple of other things that I want to do that this plays right in with. When it came time for me to realize that this was an opportunity for me to repot this tree, I went, all right, let's look at the tree. Frankly, it looks better than it's looked since the end of summer. It looks better than it has looked since we had our October heat spells. I still see a few damaged needles. Most of those were third year needles and are gone. Some of them are hard to get to, and I haven't messed with them, but if I do mess with them, the tree is in pretty good shape. It's really in pretty good shape. Based on the look of the tree alone, I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to do this repotting. Although then I would go back into the winter like I had last winter and worry. When this tree was up in the mountains, 5,800 feet up, its growing season was 4 months. And in that 4 months, it saw very high temperatures up in the mountains, and its growing season was really, really small. So, that's why they're older for their years. A lot of times their growing season was just so small. Not a lot happened during that. But part of that year, the ground spent frozen. So if the roots got good and wet on a rainy day and then it turned freezing cold that night, they weren't sitting there soaking in water. They were frozen, which seems like that would kill them to me, but not. These guys have adapted for that. So what would seem like to be a whole winter of wet, soggy roots where it came from wouldn't be. It would be sitting in a block of but it's not wet. It's ice. So that's what kept them from rotting in its environment. And that substrate would have been tolerable for that in a way here that it is not as tolerable. What I want in my substrate here is something that whenever I water it, the water will go through the top, run out the bottom. It'll make all of those little clay pellets wet and leave them a wet color instead of a lighter dry color. But then 10 minutes after we've watered, most of that water has vacated the bottom of the holes and is being replaced by oxygen coming in. So we have our water and oxygen exchange. And on a ponderosa, if it were a seesaw, we would want to be more on the oxygen side than the water side. On a Japanese black pine, it's a little closer to the middle, but that's going to be closer to the water side than the air side. That air is what keeps that air running through there after those particles have soaked up their little minuscule amount of water. But that air that comes in and replaces that is what keeps our roots from just sitting there and soaking in water. They still have the moisture they need to take up into the tree, but they're not just sitting there soaking in water rotting. So to that end, we're going to take this tree. I don't think I've got any wires to cut loose. Like I said, I'll turn it on its side. I'll rake all this top substrate off. Then after that, I will lift this block of substrate out of this pot, set the pot off to the side, give it a little rinse, make sure our screens are in place. The last time this thing was potted, it looks to me like this root running along the top here is cut right here at the edge. I would like to, for several reasons, bring this tree up. A lot of times when you see Yamadori trees, they're planted on a mound. And for reasons like this, you've got some huge ass root that you needed to deal with somehow. The method to doing that was just to, they may have had, I don't know what's going on this side. So it might have been that they could cheat it this far, whichever way, until that just bumped up there. Or it might be that side's full too, and when they got over here, they took a saw right in there, cut that off, put a crack in that, and then shoved the tree down. What I would do is bring this tree up here. That would take this that would take this flush cut that we don't want to see in bonsai, ultimately. That would take this flush cut and bring it up here, maybe pointing up, maybe pointing down, but I want to bring this much of the root mass and this much of the root ball up here. Then I'm going to take off half of the mountain soil that's here, but I'm not going to just go cutting all willy-nilly, cutting off blocks of mud and the roots with them. I'm going to go in with my chopsticks. We're going to tease out that old soil and 50% of it. But it's not going to be a straight line 50%. For instance, dead underneath this tree, I'm going to work that and get my 50% up there, which means I'll leave some of this on top alone to account for that. And then over here, we're gonna take half of this, and we're gonna take half of this, and we're gonna take half of this, and we're gonna take half of this. And again, when I say half, I don't mean half of everything. I mean half of the substrate that's in there, leaving the roots out. And then we will put a fresh bottom of, well, actually, if this is bigger than my boon mix that's coming, we'll go with the biggest, rockiest stuff I have will go in the bottom. And then on top of that, we will put a rather large sized mound of our boon mix dead center to compensate for the cavity that I cleared out of the bottom of the root ball or the sheen before and then we'll lower the tree down and set it in there again. I'll have this piece pointed up here or pointed down here, which, if you get what I'm saying, we're definitely going to enjoy changing the angle. We're definitely going to bring this tree up. The root mass will kind of filter its way down to the pot and filter its way down to the pot. Then at some point, a year or two from now, when it's less critical and I can work on, if I could work on deadwood features, or I could work on, little features, just little things like that, I would be able to expose some deadwood on this. I would be able to carve that straight cut to a little bit more of a jagged, or what I usually call a vampire spike. Look at something that says drama and doesn't say a particular wood saw. And this would turn this into a feature that will not reduce the roots. I hadn't gotten to the part where I've reduced the roots in this overly large pot. So let's get some perspective. What I was saying earlier, that Leah and I were discussing a Bonsai Mirai video where they repotted a mountain grown Yamadori ponderosa, and it was its second repotting. With all of that being said, I glanced down and looked, and the pot that it was in, and he put it in 10 years ago, he put it in a bonsai pot. He didn't put it in a training pot. He put it in a bonsai pot dead away and cut back half of the roots that it needed to fit in that bonsai pot. In other words, he cut back twice what he needed to get it to fit down in there, and then let that stuff grow out and fill the pot, and then went out and dug out all the old stuff out of the center, allowing his donut around there, this wall of fine roots, intact, because they were all connected to the center part. Well, that would still leave me with too big of a ball, and I don't have the pot that I would have. When I watched him do that video, it occurred to me that tree is the same size as this one. And what he put that in was something more than that size. Maybe this size. I would say it was a small pot. It was a fantastic, done by a famous potter, but it was so small. So my answer to that is to take off 50% off the bottom, leave more off the top here to compensate. So it'll have the same, we're going to take 50% of it off. Not the roots, just the substrate. And then we're going to chop it down real good so that those roots are back in good substrate and are ready to take off. We want this tree to take off. We want our water and oxygen to be of good and fair exchange that goes through from the top to the bottom like it's supposed to, and moves along and gets set up for the next time around. And we would like to do that with a minimum of irritation to the roots that we have, to the energy that we have stored into the processes of what we're going for. Right now is I'm turning this into a fair run for growth and a resurgence of energy. I don't have anything to stop me to throw this tree in a truck and go 100 miles down the road. This graft right here may very well grow out and be of an age to where I might decandle it, and those candles could be used to graft it somewhere else. Although I don't see many places left on this tree to graft. I'm not the expert here, but the bark has encroached over most of the places that we grafted last year. And I think for us to get more grafts, we would be looking at places that are less desirable, places that we don't frankly want. We want our tree to be back here. So this is the big push for energy. I think repotting this and not taking a lot of our roots away will go a long way towards giving this energy surge that we're looking to get this year. And I can't wait. But I knew that if I were describing all of this and going through all of these details, and I was going through all of these details on the repotting, that I would be not really focused as much as on what I'm doing, as much as I'm talking about why I'm doing it, which is a different conversation. It just made sense to me to have that conversation now. Just while we're talking about it, I'm really happy with the overall look of my ponderosa. I've started peeling off a lot of the cut paste that I put on here last year when I saw that it was weeping from all of its from some of its wire marks. Yeah, that's what's going on, and that's what we're up to. I think it'll probably, my substrate and stuff will probably show up midweek. So, I mean, it could be late even, but I think that stuff will probably show up midweek. And I look to bring that tree in and do a repot. We're going to redo the angle, and we're going to raise it up in the pot and redo the angle. How does that work as far as that goes? Well, here's how. By turning the root mass into more of a pyramid shape, because like I said, I'm raising it up. On the flip side of this, when it comes time for a repot, I will be able to restyle the tree. I will be able to style the tree as I go. And when it comes time to finally do the repot, because our grafts have all taken, we've started building that tree, blah, 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 and now we've got ourselves a new bonsai pot and we're going into there. I will have built a pyramid-shaped root system that I will find easier to cut back. And then I will take out what's left of the mountain soil in the pockets, because it's not all going to be 50% in the center. She left the outside. I'm going to do more from the bottom coming up, dead underneath in the sheen area, and then I'm going to we're going to take off the sides on all four sides, and so that will be something that I will be able to reduce to a bonsai pot size, knowing that I've still got it mounded up. I don't have to set a tree down in there. During that time, I will have worked this. I may have created some sharis. I could see the way the bark is running here, the way the bark is running there. We've got some twists and some motions that could make for some really, really beautiful sharis and gins. And this base is, we're not totally seeing how much of that base there is to it. So there's parts of this tree that are unseen by you and I, and I'm really looking forward to getting a good look at those. That's what I have going on. That's what we're up to. I didn't want to just continue to wait another week to say anything. We might also have Bonsai, Saturday Night Live Bonsai tonight. I think it might be a good time. I'm feeling like it would be a good time to pull up a little tree or two and take them into the bonsai, pot them up, and maybe get them going there. Like and subscribe. We're just about to knock into our 30-minute mark. I wanted to let you know what I had going on and what we're about to embark on. Also, here's a little word about that. As y'all all know, as we've been discussing, this is a grafted tree. Let's say I was going to maintain this tree as a ponderosa, no grafts. I would have to take into consideration whether or not I'm going to be able to balance its health and vigor in the zone that I'm in without enough heat during its short cycle and without near enough cold to shut down properly. But let's just say I wanted to keep it as a ponderosa. This pot would still be a major hindrance towards making shorter needle length. In order to get a single flush long leaf pine to make shorter needles, we need it to be in a bonsai pot, and we need to feed it and water it and let it back bud profusely, and then let all of those back buds take all of the energy that can be stored in a bonsai pot, even for a tree that's being watered and fed and well maintained. So at some point, they will then make shorter needles because of the size of the bonsai pot. If you have your pre-bonsai in a huge pre-bonsai pot, your needles are just going to get big and out of control, and they're going to stay that way. And none of the practices that we preach towards getting a smaller needle size will really come into play until you make that pot shorter. So that is in addition to everything else I just said about ponderosas and repotting and stuff. Repotting this in a larger pot right now is because we have stuff to build. I suspect I might have one pot that's small enough, that's big enough, but it's debatable to me as it is, and I don't want to go in there with this one pot and set it up there and go, yeah, no, and then have to go with it anyway. So our angle adjustment in raising the tree up will go some way towards making our root mass something that can be chopped down to our bonsai pot of choice later. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And our next drop will either be tonight, tomorrow, or both. I like the sounds of both. We have a lot to be happy about. Alameda is the good place to hang out if you're happy. And this is our bonsai. I brought these out. I thought maybe at some point I'm going to need to do some maintenance here. Not to just jump over all cypressy and stuff, but these guys are starting to get a little large and bulbous. And what they can do for us is a little minimal. I should probably start cleaning this up. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a little bit. Oh yeah, get that one first. Got it? Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you all so much for watching.